Okay, ready? We started?
Yeah, we started.
Okay. Over now. Okay, here we go. Page 877 of volume 2 is where this gosho's located. Now, luckily, it's a short gosho, so the entire gosho's in the lecture itself. But because the background is in the book, I'm going to read from the book, and then I'll go to the actual lecture itself. But since I'm not going to do the gray box and I'm going to be reading from the book, I want to read what the subtitle is here from under the false official documents title of this Gosho lecture from President Ikeda. It says, each person's victory equals the advance of Kosen Rufu. And if you don't perceive your life with that level of power, authority, and influence, then you're not perceiving it correctly. You're all Buddhists. You all chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. You're all bodhisattvas of the earth. Each one of us that establishes the proof of actual fact in our lives is establishing one more stone in the pavement of the road to, worldwide Kosen Rufu, pacification of the land through the propagation of the law. So let me start on the background on this Gosho. It's page 878 of volume 2. And it says, background, this letter dated the 3rd day of the 5th month was probably written in 1280 or in 1278, according to another view. It was sent to the lay nun of Kubo, who lived in the Kubo area of the Fuji district of Suruga province. Thanking her for her offerings, Nichiren Daishonin explained that a falsified official document is surely behind the persecutions in the Atsuhara area of Fuji district. Judging from the fact that during his own exile to Sado Island, official documents were forged 3 times in order to force the Daishonin into seclusion and punish his local believers for giving him aid. He also points out that the regent, Hojo Tokimune, who sent him into exile without proper investigation, but later regretted his action and pardoned him, would therefore no longer punish the Daishonin's followers without asking for details. When under the regent's authority, high officials attempt to destroy the Lotus Sutra and persecute its believers, the Daishonin says, they will not only bring about the downfall of the nation and their own land, but also ruin themselves. The Daishonin declares that because the Lotus Sutra is protected by Brahme, Chakra, the gods of the sun and the moon, the 4 heavenly kings, and the guardian deities, those who persecute its believers will suffer retribution for their actions. That applies to you as well. I don't know how much you've been able to see that in your life, but I've seen many enemies, people that persecuted me, suffer. I should not feel good about that, but I do see the causality of slandering Tom. It's not a good idea. Page 877, and that's not because I'm specialist, because I do my best to follow the correct teaching. False official documents. I'm a disciple of Daisaku Ikeda, don't mess with me. False official documents on page 877. I have received 5 bundles of rice dumplings, this is the Gosho, wrapped in leaves, 10 bamboo shoots, and a bamboo container of sake. As usual, the rain has been falling forever and the summer days are long. And just when, since the mountains are deep and the paths overgrown with grasses, no one could push their way through. Thank you, dear. Your single voice reached me through, along with the song of the cuckoo. How grateful I was. Now, with regard to the incident in Atsuhara, perhaps you have realized the truth. What happened before was also a matter of lies. The ruler, the Lord of Sagami, who went along with the people's slander without asking for details and sent this priest into exile, regretted it and pardoned me. After that, how could he possibly punish us again without a clear offense? Though at heart retainers of the rulers are enemies of the Lotus Sutra, they are concerned about slandering us to their Lord. Thus, when they actually used the situation in Atsuhara as a pretext to persecute us, their own earlier lies came to light instead. I guess that this matter was based on a falsified official document without even seeing it. Even when I was in exile on Sado Island, they forged official documents no less than 3 times. Thus, I can only feel pity for the ruler and for the country of Japan. Just as insects protected by a tree's shade eat away at the tree and topple it, and the worms in a lion's body eat away at it and kill it. Those who make their ways in the world protected by the Lord of Sagami under the cover of his authority threaten everyone, causing them suffering and distress. In addition, claiming that it is at the order of the ruler, they attempt to wipe out the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, causing the downfall of the nation and inviting the ruin of their Lord. How foolish that, in the end, they destroy their own lives. I am lowborn, but since the sutra is one that Brahma, Chakra, and the gods of the sun and the moon and the four heavenly kings, the sun goddess, the great bodhisattva Hachiman, protect, those who persecute believers in the Lotus Sutra are surely only swallowing their own swords or grasping flames in their hands. Therefore, your ever-strengthening faith is admirable indeed. Nichiren, the third day of the 5th month, replied to the lay nun of Kubo. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip here. And getting into President Ikeda's lecture now. Okay, so this is volume 6 of Teachings for Victory. All right, we're studying the first lecture, which is the Gosho on the false official documents. I'm going to skip to page 3 now because we just read the whole Gosho where it says lecture. On September 8th, by the way, as we read this, I want you to consider, all of you have been practicing long enough, I think, to remember and know how much the Soka Gakkai has been slandered in the past. Okay, in its history, it was really came from being something small, and a lot of kind of not so important people were the beginning members. All right, and since then, and especially during and around the split with the priesthood, there was tremendous slander and stories and all kinds of weird shit going on. Okay, he's not really referring to any of that here, but as I read this, reflect on how easily authorities manipulate information. People make shit up. Everybody believes it because it's spicy, and slander is created as a result. A loss of fortune is created as a result, okay? And when that occurs, the individual that's being slandered, depending upon how they behave, that's what I said, you either gain protection or you don't, okay? So keep that in mind, that you are protected, and that whenever you are going to be slandered, you're going to be slandered. If you're really speaking out, if you're doing shakabuku, you're going to be slandered. It's unescapable. It's unescapable. That's what he's making clear here. So don't be wigged out about it. Don't really care about it, and snuff it out every time. Kick its ass. Don't let it stand. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Don't ever let it stand. All right? Continuing on page 3, lecture. On September 8th, 1957, my mentor, Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda, delivered his declaration for the abolition of nuclear weapons at the Mitsuzuwa Stadium in Yokohama. It was an event that became the starting point of the SGI's activities for peace. Although a movement calling for a ban on the testing of nuclear weapons had risen around the world, he says, this is quote unquote, quote, "It is my wish to go further, to attack the problem at its root. I want to expose and rip out the claws that lie hidden in the very depths of such weapons. Condemning nuclear weapons as the embodiment of absolute evil, a threat to the very survival of the human race, he asserted. Anyone who jeopardizes that right and an inviolable right to live is a devil incarnate, a fiend, a monster." And it just so happens that right now, there are some world leaders that are tossing around comments about using nuclear weapons. Now, we really haven't seen that so much in the years since World War II and the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but it's beginning to be discussed again because now they've been able to tailor those nuclear weapons down to the point that they are able to control the blast radius and the level of nuclear fallout and all that. It's kind of like, it's a scary time because it can be used more strategically. So we should also understand that President Toda's position in all this was that the correct understanding of nuclear weapons is that they destroy life, and they destroy life indiscriminately. and broadly, and therefore they are evil. Okay? There's no such thing as a kind or appropriate use of such a weapon, because you're taking out so many innocents that have nothing to do with the political hierarchy of a particular region that's caused the disturbance. Okay, so he says, anyone who jeopardizes that right, an inviolable right to live, is a devil incarnate, a fiend, a monster. So when you hear about world leaders that talk about using nukes in order to substantiate their influence and power in the world, according to our mentors, they are devils incarnate, they are fiends, they are being monsters. I just wanted to make that clear. His stirring declaration still rings in my ears today. Because he entrusted us, the members of the youth division, with the, and I'm not being political, I'm being philosophical in making that statement. Do understand me. That could be made by anybody, and I take the same position about it. All right? His stirring declaration still rings in my ears today because he entrusted us, the members of the youth division, with the elimination of nuclear weapons as the first of his final instructions for the future. I have dedicated my life to making this a reality. And as you know, he does every year an anti-nuclear. I mean, this has been going on for decades. In his declaration, President Toda focused his attention on the struggle against the demonic nature that resides deep within the human heart. The SGI's Human Revolution movement seeks to vanquish this innate darkness that devalues life and human dignity. It seeks to build through grassroots dialogue a society that values life, respects human rights, and nurtures a culture of peace. Transforming the human heart, which guides and shapes all human endeavors, including government and commerce, is a crucial revolution, an eternal struggle that will decide the destiny of humankind. Because this not only has to be kept in check now, it's got to be kept in check forever. Because we're talking about something that can destroy the Sahe world. It can make it uninhabitable for living beings of any kind. Okay? That's why it's evil. That's why it's the devil incarnate. Okay? The greatness of human beings, he's now qualifying on the second column of page 3. September marks the anniversaries of the Tatsunokuchi persecution and the arrest of Nichiren Daishonin's believers during the Atsuhara persecution. Of course, this is October 1st, so we just missed that anniversary month, but it's good to know that it's there. I didn't know that. Nichiren overcame these and countless other hardships. His life itself was a towering declaration of the victory of the human spirit, proclaiming just how great human beings are and that nothing can shackle their noble spirit. Buddhism seeks to help all people realize their full potential. In contrast, the devilish nature of authority fears the people's awakening. There are those in power who forget to serve the people and instead exploit them. I need a tissue, pardon me. Thank you. Just one's fine. And instead exploit them, wielding authority for self-serving ends. These people see the presence of individuals who can discern their insidious nature and who stand against them as a hindrance and an inconvenience. That's why the powerful do everything they can to crush them. Okay? The Daishonin waged a ceaseless struggle against devilish functions. I mean, the Daishonin stood up against everybody and said, sorry, no. No, no, no. It's the same kind of thing. All right? Pardon me. Nichiren overcame these and countless other hardships. His life itself was a towering declaration of the victory of the human spirit, proclaiming just how great human beings are and that nothing can shackle their noble spirit. Buddhism seeks to help people realize their full potential. In contrast, the devilish nature of authority fears the people's awakening. There are those in power who forget to serve the people and instead exploit them, wielding authority for self-serving ends. These people see the presence of individuals who can discern their insidious nature and who stand against them as a hindrance and an inconvenience. That's why the powerful do everything they can do to crush them. The Daishonin waged a ceaseless struggle against devilish functions. The devilish nature of authority, and the tendency to devalue life, which seek to enslave the people. In this chapter, we will study one of the Daishonin's letters addressed to the lay nun of Kubo, titled False Official Documents. In it, he uses the example of the atsuhara persecution to explain the formula by which the authorities persecute the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. He also underscores the importance of battling negative functions that aim to obstruct our practice of Buddhism. Such devilish functions are bound to arise in the course of our efforts to advance Kosen Rufu. But by seeing them for what they are and consistently challenging them, we are certain to achieve victory not only for ourselves but for all people. Let us study this important principle together. Let me reread that important part. He says he also underscores the importance of battling negative functions that aim to obstruct the practice of Buddhism. So that if a government or a country decided to make it an official policy to oppose the practice of Buddhism, it would be by virtue of its own actions also placing itself in that same category as I just discussed. All right? He also underscores the importance of battling negative functions that aim to obstruct our practice of Buddhism. Such devilish functions are bound to arise and in the course of our efforts to advance Kosen Rufu. But by seeing them for what they are and consistently challenging them, we are certain to achieve victory not only for ourselves but for all people. Let us study this important principle together. So he's really trying to talk to you about a perspective of the correct attitude towards society in the 21st century. Okay? To see the world as a conjoined kind of an entity rather than an incongruent collection of disparate types of individuals. Profound gratitude for a follower's sincerity. From the Gosho. I have received 5 bundles of rice dumplings wrapped in leaves, 10 bamboo shoots, and a bamboo container of sake. As usual, the rain has been falling forever and the summer days are long. And just when, since the mountains here at Minobu are deep and the paths overgrown with grasses, no one could push their way through, your single voice reached me along with the song of the cuckoo. How grateful I was. In the realm of Buddhism, those with an earnest seeking spirit, what's an earnest seeking spirit? One that's genuine, one that's engaged, and one that is fully active in that process, right? In the realm of Buddhism, those with an earnest seeking spirit will always be victorious because they'll always be growing towards the greater wisdom of Buddhahood. Okay? Those who persevere sincerely and staunchly in their Buddhist practice, that means they're overcoming all those goddamn devilish functions and kicking their asses and continuing to practice and never faltering in their efforts for Kosen Rufu, and establish a sound life, which you can't help but do if you do the first 2 things he's talking about, will win in the end. In the end is a long time. Okay? Okay? Before it's all over with, you'll be able to smile and go, that was cool. I won. I won. Disciples who aspire to deepen their understanding of Buddhism. What's that? People who study Buddhism and the Gosho and seek out guidance and seek out the guidance and instruction of their teacher and always long for self-improvement. Disciples who aspire to deepen their understanding of Buddhism seek out the guidance and instruction of their teacher and always long for self-improvement. When disciples make their way in life with their teacher always in their hearts, they have nothing to fear. Okay? We have many teachers, but the ultimate primary teacher is Nichiren. Okay? So this is not him talking about, yeah, you guys should all be hanging on me and I'm the teacher and I'm all that in a bag of chips, because time is going on. He's getting old. Okay, they're going to have to be new teachers. Okay, and so he's saying disciples who aspire to deepen their understanding of Buddhism seek out the guidance and instruction of their teacher and always long for self-improvement so they can become teachers. And show the proof of actual fact. When disciples make their way in life with their teacher always in their hearts, whoever helped you, You want to help others in that same fashion. You want to pass the baton. You want to contribute to the ever-expanding and eternal process of Kosen Rufu. You don't underestimate or think of yourself as less than somebody that really has a significant something to offer to that process. It's all based on what you make as an effort in your daily life and how many people you reach out to. According to this letter, the lay nun of Kubo presented the Daishonin with an offering of rice dumplings wrapped in leaves, 10 bamboo shoots, and a bamboo container of sake. The letter conveys his profound gratitude. The exact date is unknown, but is thought to have been written one summer in the early part of the Koan era, specifically the period between 1278 and 80. Nichiren wrote many letters to the lay nun of Kubo. He repeatedly praised her resolve and sincerity in faith. In this letter, he expresses admiration for her ever-strengthening faith. In another letter, he writes, "How deep are the roots of your faith?" Another, I believe it means, he says, "How great was your kindness in sending offerings?" And in yet, he says, "How great was your kindness in sending offerings?" These passages attest to the seeking spirit and how she strove with a pure-hearted faith. The details of her life remain unclear, but from the Daishonin's letters, it seems that she was a widow caring for a young daughter on her own. We can surmise from her frequent offerings that she was a dedicated practitioner of his teachings. Continuing at the bottom of page 4, second column. The Daishonin greatly trusted the lay nun, who was undoubtedly an important follower in Suruga province. This region fell under the direct control of the ruling Hojo clan, many of whom were extremely hostile to the Daishonin and his disciples, which is a prime reason that the Atsuhara persecution took place there. In the very midst of this persecution, the Daishonin sent this heartfelt letter explaining why such persecutions occur. It's not quite different than the opening of the eyes. He's talking about himself, now he's saying why it's going to happen to you too. Okay, page 5, first column. Discerning the true nature of devilish functions. And before we start, what is that about? What's the true nature of devilish functions? Bad luck? No. It's again, these are things that are opposing your advance when you're doing the things that make advance. Devilish functions don't come along to bother you, really, until you're trying to do something that will lead you toward Buddhahood. Mm-hmm. All right? Because they're part of the 3 obstacles of 4 devils. And when do the 4 devils come out? Okay? The 4 devils come out to those who are advancing towards enlightenment. Okay? Mm-hmm. Discerning the true nature of devilish functions. So what's the true nature of devilish functions? They're to stop you from attaining your ultimate enlightened state of Buddhahood. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the only thing that can stop you from becoming the Buddha in this lifetime are devilish functions defeating you in the process of that endeavor. Okay? So he says, from the Gosho, now with regard to the incident at Atsuhara, perhaps you have realized the truth. What happened before was also a matter of lies. The ruler, the Lord of Sagami, the 8th regent, Hojo Tokimuni, who went along with the people's slander without asking for details and sent this priest into exile, regretted it and pardoned me. After that, how could he possibly punish us again without a clear offense? Mr. Toda said, continuing on page 5, first column, down at the bottom, Mr. Toda said, this is the most troubled time since the beginning of our country. Wow, we could almost say the same thing about now, couldn't we? I don't care what country you're in, you can almost say that. Everywhere. All right? Prepare yourselves. Stand up with strong faith. Don't let the tides of the times sweep you away. So keep that to heart. Faith provides the strength to triumph in troubled times. It also enables us to cultivate the insightful wisdom to discern the essence of things and events. It's really those troubled times that are our teacher, because it's those troubled times that call forth us to have to use and utilize our Buddha nature, our faith, our daimoku, our prayer, right? Our study. Figure out what's going on. In a tumultuous age, Negative forces are powerful. Unscrupulous people conspire and act cunningly behind the scenes. We must never allow ourselves to be deceived by such people. So when people are passing bad rumors of slander around, don't jump in and contribute and carry it on to tell the next person. Address it for what it should be. It should be like, we really shouldn't be talking about each other like that. We're all Buddhists, right? We must never allow ourselves to be deceived by such people. We must see the true nature of devilish functions. That is the message of this letter. Because if you listen to them and you slander somebody that maybe that's not correct, right? You're going to suffer from that. Okay? All right. This section at the top of page 5, first full paragraph, second column. This section begins with the words, now with regard to the incident at Atsuhara. Perhaps you have realized the truth. What happened before was also a matter of lies. Here the Daishonin refers to the role played by questionable official documents or orders in the ongoing Atsuhara persecution. During his exile on Sado Island, Hojo Nobutoki had issued similar documents at the urging of the Pure Land Nimbutsu school followers. An influential figure in the Kamakura military government, Hojo Nobutoki, who's the bad guy here, was the governor of Musashi and a constable of Sado. While exiled in Sado, the Daishonin was under his official custody. In response to claims from Ryokan and Nimbutsu adherents, Nobutoki sent a private order dated December 7th, 1273 to his retainer Homa Shigetsura, the deputy constable of Sado, calling for a crackdown on the Daishonin's followers on the island of Sado. He did this 3 times. The regent Hojo Tokimuni pardoned the Daishonin and released him from exile because he regretted having unjustly punished him based solely on false accusations made by the powerful deputy chief of the Office of Military and Police Affairs, Heino Seimin. Heino Seimin is the guy that sent him to Tatsunokuchi, right? The Daishonin says, and by the way, he died a terrible death. That's why he says you don't have to worry about people that do this to us don't get away with it, all right? Heino Seimin and others. The Daishonin says that because of this, it is inconceivable that Tokimuni would punish him or his disciples again without being manipulated, he's saying. That's why he's saying this is got to be falsified documents. Tokimuni would not do this if he knew, if these were correct, all right? He's saying, he reiterates, where am I? Yeah, he reiterates this message on persecutions befalling the sage. Continuing on page 6. Okay, dear, thank you. The lay priest of Saimyoji, Hojo Tokiyori, the retired 5th regent, now deceased, and the 5th ruler, Regent Hojo Tokimuni, permitted my return from exiles to Izu and Sado, respectively, when they found that I was innocent of the accusations against me. The present ruler shall no longer take action on any charge without confirming its truth. The Daishonin's indomitable struggle to establish the correct teaching for the peace of the land gradually awakened the nation's rulers to the truth, and the true nature of the corrupt forces opposing the Daishonin was slowly being exposed. The Daishonin asserts that Tokimuni did not order the Atsuhara persecution. Okay, that's right there, he's saying it. The Daishonin asserts that Tokimuni did not order the Atsuhara persecution, but rather that others borrowed his authority without his knowledge and hatched the plot, which happens quite often when you have, divisions of authority. People can say, well, he knows. Okay. This is the Daishonin revealing the truth of the matter to his followers in Suruga. The Atsuhara persecution as a pivotal event in the history of the common people, continuing on page 6, first column. Let us take this opportunity to review the Atsuhara persecution timeline and significance. What the Daishonin refers to as the incident at Atsuhara here was the persecution of his followers in the Suruga Fuji district, carried out over several years and reaching a peak in 1279. Just before the persecution began, many local farmers had come to embrace and practice the Daishonin's teachings at the urging of the disciples, the Daishonin's disciples. Gyochi, the deputy chief priest of Rusinji temple in the area, feared the growing number of the Daishonin's followers, and he conspired with other influential local figures to threaten these new believers. As a result, 20 of these farmers were suddenly arrested on trumped-up charges on September 21st, 1279. The prisoners were taken to Kamakura, where they endured harsh interrogation tantamount to torture and were pressed to recant their belief in the Lotus Sutra. Not a single one did so. However, all remaining true to their faith in the mystic law. In the end, the three brothers Jinshiro, Yagoro, and Yarokoro were executed, while the other 17 were banished. It is thought that the execution took place either on October 15, 1279 or the following April. Okay, so did you guys know that? I never realized that they were taken to Kamakura as a result of this. I always thought that it all happened in Atsuhara and it was all being kind of held away from Kamakura, but no, they were actually moved there. And did you know that the 17 that didn't get their heads cut off were banished? They didn't get to go home. They didn't get to go home. I did not know that either. Okay? The prisoners were taken to Kamakura, where they endured harsh interrogation tantamount to torture and were pressed to recant their belief in the Lotus Sutra. Not a single one did so, however, all remaining true to their faith in the mystic law. In the end, the three brothers, Jinshiro, Yagoro, and Yorokuro, were executed, while the other 17 were banished. From the perspective of the history of the common people, the Atsuhara persecution contains profound meaning. It represents the emergence from among the people of independent, strong-willed individuals who refuse to let the oppression of authority and power defeat them, even if it costs them their lives. By the Kamakura period, more than 7 centuries had passed since Buddhism arrived in Japan. In the mid-6th century, during that time, faith in the Buddhist teachings had come to permeate the lives of the Japanese. On the top of page 7, first column. On the whole, however, their faith focused mainly on attaining immediate benefit, or alternately, on escaping this world's harsh reality and seeking salvation after death. But in the Atsuhara persecution, nameless, ordinary farmers remained faithful to the Buddhist teachings. They embraced and refused to be intimidated by ruthless oppression. Set in 13th century feudal Japan, this truly pioneering struggle for human rights will shine forever in history. A passage from the Daishonist treatise. There weren't many people doing that back in the 13th century. You know, not many people would oppose and give up their life on the principle of something like that. Okay, again, it's a brand new belief set on top of everything else. This isn't an old school or some entrenched power influence or something that's being overthrown and toppled. These are brand new people. They won't stop chanting. Okay, a passage from the Daishonist treatise, The Selection of the Time, appears in the UNESCO publication titled Birthright of Man, a collection of inspiring quotes on human rights compiled to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1968. It is the passage from his encounter with Hino Seimin upon his return to Kamakura after his exile on Sado. When he came to go bust his ass. Hey, I'm still back. I'm back. You didn't kill me at Tatsunokuchi. You didn't kill me at Sado, dude. What up? He says to him without any fear, even if it seems that because I was born in the ruler's domain, I follow him in my actions, I will never follow him in my heart. Pardon me. Thank you. Pardon me. Continuing on page 7, first column, addressing an all-powerful government figure, The Daishonin thus declared courageously to the effect, you cannot condemn me to death or sentence me to exile, but you can condemn me to death or sentence me to exile, but you can never imprison my spirit. I will never become a slave to the authorities. Spiritual liberty and religious freedom, which must remain forever inviolate, form the bedrock of human rights. Even the most absolute authority cannot shackle our spirits, cannot stop us from calling out our freedom, cannot destroy truth and justice. The Daishonin's followers proved this during the Atsuhara persecution. And from another perspective, at the top of page 7, second column, and from another perspective, their staunch faith in the face of oppression demonstrated that his ordinary lay followers had firmly embraced the spirit shown by Nichiren Daishonin. They had become of the same mind as Nichiren, who had overcome numerous life-threatening persecutions in his ongoing struggle to propagate the mystic law. This was a proud testimony to his victory since establishing his teaching. It absolutely was. Continuing in the middle of page 7, second column, a great citadel of the people that will endure forever. The Soka Gakkai has inherited these disciples' noble spirit, overcoming all manner of obstacles and persecutions to pave the way to a new age of the people's victory. This is attested to by the struggles waged in prison by our first and second presidents, Tsunesaburo Makaguchi and Josei Toda, against Japan's wartime militarist authorities. Our members stand for justice our members stand for justice in the Yubari Coal Miners Union incident, and the Osaka incident also attest to this. The history of our Soka movement in Japan has been one of staunchly upholding the banner of the mystic law, undefeated by harassment and social ostracism in the early days. Today, when our movement is spread to 192 countries and territories, we live in an age of worldwide Kosen-Rufu. It is precisely because of Mr. Makaguchi and Mr. Toda's unsparing efforts that our grassroots network now extends around the globe. Hi, everybody. And enjoys much support and understanding in society. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of us. Incredibly noble, our members refuse to be defeated by any difficulty. I would like to declare that a great eternal citadel of the victory of the people has been established in the time of the first three presidents. And then continuing with the Gosho, middle of page 8. Using slanderous rumors and malicious screams. Using slanderous rumors. I need another drink of coffee, sorry. By the way, those of you that don't know, we read the opening of Eyes, which was 6 hours long, so my voice is a little stressed right now. You won't get this on YouTube until after that's all been posted. Using slanderous rumors and malicious schemes to discredit the good. From the Gosho. Though at heart retainers of the ruler are enemies of the Lotus Sutra, they are concerned about slandering us to their Lord. Thus, when they actually use the situation in Atsuhara as a pretext to persecute us, their own earlier lies came to light instead. I guess that this matter was based on a falsified official document without even seeing it. Even when I was in exile on Sado Island, they forged official documents no less than 3 times. Here the Daishonin says that the persecution of his followers in Atsuhara, out of resentment for their growing numbers, was contrived by those who cloaked themselves in government authority. And it was the growing numbers of the Soka Gakkai in post-World War II Japan that made everybody oppose them in Japan as well. Their actions, however, resulted only in exposing their earlier deceptions. He adds the present document is also of questionable authority without him having to see it. He goes on to say, even when I was in exile on Sado Island, they forged official documents no less than 3 times. He also refers to this in an earlier letter, the actions of the votary of the Lotus Sutra dated 1276. When the former governor of Musashi, Hojo Nobutoki, heard this, a report by Nembutsu priests leveling slanderous allegations against me. He decided there was no need to report it to the regent, Hojo Tokimuni. Instead, he sent private orders that any followers of Nichiren in the province of Sato should be driven out of the province or imprisoned. He also sent official letters containing similar instructions. He did so 3 times. In addition, in the Sutra of True Requital, dated July 1278, he writes, Ryokan of Gorakuji and others persuaded the former governor of the province of Masashi to issue his own letters of instruction, which were carried to Sato by Ryokan's disciples, ordering that I be persecuted. This is the repeated pattern of persecution. Corrupt priests and those in power collude to destroy the votary of the Lotus Sutra through slanderous rumors. The Daishonin's entire life was a struggle against the 3 powerful enemies described in the Lotus Sutra. Those of the 3 enemies, the third and the most formidable, of those 3 enemies, the third and most formidable kind, arrogant false sages, do not directly oppose the votary of the Lotus Sutra, but circulate slanderous rumors to incite ruling authorities to act against him. During the Daishonin's lifetime, Ryokan manifested this function in perfect accord with the sutra's predictions, causing the authorities to persecute the Daishonin. In 1271, the Daishonin challenged Ryokan to a contest to pray for rain and completely triumphed, kicked his ass. But Ryokan resented this and plotted with influential Nembutsu priests in Kamakura, such as Nena Ryochu and Doamira Butsu. They brought charges against the Daishonin in a written complaint lodged in the name of one of their underlings, Gyobin. The petition accused Nichiren of having burned or cast into the water images of Amida Buddha and of gathering violent villains about him at his dwelling. God, this sounds like early Soka Gakkai. The Daishonin responded by demanding that his accusers present witnesses or show proof. Ryokan and his cohorts simply aimed to manufacture outrageous charges and by making them public, arouse general hostility toward the Daishonin. And by the way, that happens quite often right now in the current era. A lot of people get on YouTube or they get on whatever media and they say whatever they want to, and there's no way, nobody checks it out. The people that want to believe them believe what they're saying regardless of what they say. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. Ryokan and his cohort simply aim to manufacture outrageous charges, and outrageous charges will stick in the minds of people whether they're true or not. If everybody said a bunch of bad things about you, it'd be very difficult to get them to completely put them aside and not believe any of them. All right? It's the truth. Ryokan and his cohort simply aim to manufacture outrageous charges and by making them public, arouse general hostility toward the Daishonin. It's nothing that they could do to stick him in jail or anything, but they can make people not trust him by saying all kinds of nasty stuff about him, which is the same thing that's happened to President Ikeda. Okay? Ryokan also ingratiated himself with the wives of top government officials and spread slanderous claims among them. They included one extremely influential woman who was the widow of the former regent Hojo Tokiyori, which is the guy that sent him to the Izu Peninsula, by the way. The mother of the current regent, Hojo Tokimuni, and the daughter of the late regent cosigner, Hojo Shigetori. At the time of the Daishonin's arrest in the Tatsunokuji persecution, too, those behind it tried to create the impression in the public's mind that all of the Daishonin's followers were traitors. After the attempt to have, sound familiar? After the attempt to have him executed in Tatsunokuchi failed, the Daishonin was temporarily held at the Eichi residence of Homa Rakuro Seiman, the deputy constable of Sato. During the ensuing debate over the Daishonin's fate, Ryokan and his followers schemed in various ways to discredit the Daishonin's disciples. Take away the leader. That's Operation Cut. That's what Nikken did. to President Ikeda, thinking that he could just topple the Soka Gakkai and have the whole lay organization fall in his lap, and all their Gokuyo. I don't have to share it with anybody. That's exactly what this is about. During the ensuing debate over the Daishonin's fate, Ryokan and his followers schemed in various ways to discredit the Daishonin's disciples. This included making trumped-up charges implicating them in a spate of fires and murders that had been taking place in Kamakura. As a result, the authorities decided to exile the Daishonin to Sato Island and harshly oppress his followers in Kamakura. In addition, as noted earlier, such persecution based on fabrications continued to be fanned by repressive private orders even during the Daishonin's exile on Sato. The Daishonin's enemies must have thought that their strategy had succeeded and initially rejoiced at the results. But later, Tokimune learned of the fraudulent nature of their claims and pardoned the Daishonin, exposing their evil deeds and in the end, revealing the truth. During the Atsuhara persecution, they aimed at his followers the same strategy they had directed at the Daishonin. Top of page 10. Persecutions based on false allegations. Shakyamuni Buddha had plenty of that too. In other words, in fact, everybody did. Tiantai did. Dengyo did. There's no leader of the correct teacher. There's no teacher of the correct teaching that didn't deal with this kind of crap, whether you're aware of it or not. Persecution is based on false allegations. In other words, the Asahara persecution resulted from the collusion of Gyochi, the deputy chief priest of Rosenji Temple in Atsuhara village, and Heino Seiman, the deputy chief of the Office of Military and Police Affairs. It was reprehensible, motivated by resentment and self-interest. They joined together to fabricate charges as an excuse to persecute the Daishonin's followers. Among the false allegations was the claim that Nishu, one of the priests at Rosenji who had converted to the Daishonin's teaching, had led a group of farmers in an armed attack on Gyochi's private quarters at the temple. They also claimed Nichiren's followers had stolen rice from the temple's fields. In actuality, Gyochi had concocted these charges to cover up his own wrongdoings and prevent it from being exposed. As the Daishonin writes in the Rosenji petition, Gyochi, hoping to conceal his own various offenses and keep them hidden, made spurious and untruthful charges against us. Additionally, when Heino Seiman questioned the 20 farmers, he never even mentioned Gyochi's charges of stealing rice or all this other stuff. Instead, he pressed them to relinquish their faith in the Lotus Sutra, which was the real reason he had them harassed, promising that all charges would be dropped if they signed a pledge to adopt Pure Land, a Nimbutsu, an Amida school practice of chanting the Nimbutsu. This is another clear indication that the charges in Gyochi's document were complete fabrications and that religious persecution was the motive from the very beginning. Such plotting and deviousness are standard methods evil people employ to malign the good and the true. The same pattern that we see in the Daishonin's time remains in use today. Let me reread that. Such plotting and deviousness as has been described in these actions of people from the 12th century are standard methods evil people employ to malign the good and true. The same pattern that we see in the Daishonin's time remains in use today, but wrongs are always exposed in the end. Evil can never defeat good. Why? I said this a million times. I love the answer. It's my own answer, but it's the truth. Because they're evil. Evil can't defeat good. Because of its evil nature, it can't be rewarded in a way that could be called a win. Okay? It can disguise itself as a victory, but cause and effect ultimately prevails. Ultimately, it never wins. Okay? But wrongs are always exposed in the end. The self-assured actions of the good and true make the difference between right and wrong eminently clear. What has happened? The Soka Gakkai has sustained and maintained, while Nichiren Shoshu, which was the source of all that slander, has shrunk to less than 900,000 people. There's less than 1 million people chanting in Nichiren Shoshu in Japan. By the way, all of you Nichiren Shoshu guys, you shrunk. That is the message that I shown and wished to impart to his disciples. Page 10 in the middle, the uncompromising law of cause and effect. And by the way, that's the reported membership of Nichiren Shoshu by Nichiren Shoshu, 880,000. The uncompromising law of cause and effect. The uncompromising law of cause and effect. What's that mean? No. The uncompromising law of cause and effect. Causes are never mitigated. They always lead to an effect. It's uncompromising. It doesn't cut you any slack. The law of cause and effect doesn't say, you know what, you're not a bad person. Oh, you created this cause. There's nothing judgmental like that. It's strictly cause and effect. It's strictly uncompromising. That's why you can't provide yourself with a latitude when you decide you want to. You have to follow the teaching. Okay? Because the uncompromising law of cause and effect will bite your ass if you don't. All right? Going back to the Gosho, thus I can only feel pity for the ruler and for the country of Japan, just as the insects protected by the tree's shade eat away at the tree and topple it, and the worms in the lion's body eat away at and kill it. Those who make their ways in the world protected by the Lord of Sagami under cover of his authority threaten everyone, causing them suffering and distress. In addition, claiming that it is the order of the ruler, they attempt to wipe out the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, causing the downfall of the nation and inviting the ruin of their Lord. How foolish that in the end they destroy their own lives based on cause and effect, their karma. That's how they destroy their own lives. Top of page 11. First column here, the Daishonin asserts that the actions of those corrupt individuals, truly, the worms in a lion's body, cause great harm to the region Hojo Tokimuni and to the country. So much so that these actions, what's the country always reflect? What's the environment always reflect?
Karma.
Of
The nation.
the people, of the inhabitants, the living beings occupying it. Okay, so there's no such thing as that that's going to affect the country. That's why Germany was toppled. Italy was toppled. You've never seen an evil country that didn't respect life that continued to prosper. What do you think is going on right now? Okay, it's the hens coming home to roost in a lot of places. So much, and I'm not being political, I'm being philosophical. The uncompromising law of cause and effect. I'm not talking about, a judgment of what is a correct way of thinking or an incorrect way of thinking. I'm talking about actions that bring about effects that are not pleasant. Okay? So much so that these actions are certain to eventually cause the downfall of the regent, the military government, and the nation. That's what it all leads to if it's not mitigated by the people occupying that space. Worms in the lion's body refer to internal parasites that consume the lion's flesh. A Buddhist scripture states no creature that lives in the air, in the soil, in water, or on land will venture to eat the flesh of the dead lion. Only the worms that are born from the body of the lion itself will feed on the lion's flesh. In the same way, the Buddha's teachings cannot be destroyed by outside forces. But the evil monks who exist within the body of my teachings, they are the ones who will destroy these teachings. Okay? But the evil monks who exist within the body of my teachings, this is Nichiren saying this. Okay, do you catch a drift there? What is the significance of that? This is from the Gosho. It's him saying it. evil monks who exist within the body of my teachings, they are the ones who will destroy these teachings. It's the authorities of the teaching that don't say it right that start to manipulate it to their own benefit. That's sure in Daisaku Ikeda. Okay? They're the ones who will destroy my teachings. And he's talking about monks. He doesn't say anything about lay people. Okay? So he's already saying that the clergy, the lay, the priesthood is capable of distorting my teaching. Protect my teaching. That's what he's saying to another lay person, the lay nun, Kubo. Okay? In this letter, Nichiren points out that members of the Hojo clan's inner circle are the worms who will cause the clan's destruction. The Daishonin solemnly notes how foolish that in the end they destroy their own lives. The powerful Heino Seimin, who for a while wielded pardon me. Thank you. Pardon me. The powerful Heino Seimin, for who a while wielded absolute power after successfully destroying an opposing force within the military government, did bring about his own ruin in the end. As the Daishonin observes, the results of victory and defeat are clearly manifested. In the past and in the present latter day of the law, the rulers, high ministers, and people who despise the votaries of the Lotus Sutra seem to be free from punishment at first. Second column, page 11. But eventually, they are all doomed to fail. Considering the fate of the nation, the Daishonin laments that leaders whose role it should be to serve the people lose sight of that responsibility. I'll say it again. Considering the fate of the nation, the Daishonin laments that leaders whose role it should be to serve the people lose sight of that responsibility. Motivated by self-interest, they resort to underhanded means to persecute those truly striving to help the people, ultimately becoming the cause for the nation's destruction. Here, the Daishonin reproves not the regent Hojo Tokimuni, but the faction. Tokimuni was lied to, made the mistake of exiling him to Sado. It was Tokimuni's father-in-law who had exiled him to Izu, or brother, whatever, I just said they're related there. But the faction that exploited his authority, that was Ryokan and all the Nimbutsu followers and so forth that attacked the Daishonin and used the authority of the government to persecute him. But if the leaders, he says, okay, let me start again. Middle of page 11. Here the Daishonin reproves not the regent Hojo Tokimuni, but the faction that exploited his authority. But if leaders are not wise, the unscrupulous around them will deceive them, taking full advantage of them, and it will be the people who will suffer for it. In such writings as On Establishing the Correct Teaching for the Peace of the Land and the Letter from Sado, the Daishonin persistently argues the need for a leadership revolution. And we need that. That's what we're all trying to participate in, right, is the establishment of a leaders. We're all going to become leaders, right? This is the leadership revolution. Advance with ever-strengthening resolve. Going back to the Gosho, I am low-born, but since the sutra is one that the benevolent forces of the universe, such as Brahme, Chakra, and the gods of the sun and the moon, the four heavenly kings, the sun goddess, the great bodhisattva Hachiman protect, those who persecute believers in the Lotus Sutra are surely only swallowing their own swords or grasping flames in their hands. Therefore, your ever-strengthening faith is admirable, admirable indeed. In this final section of the letter, on page 12 at the top, in this final section of the letter, the Daishonin states that the heavenly deities will protect those who embrace faith in the Lotus Sutra. Buddhism is a constant battle between the Buddha and negative functions. Let's say it again. Buddhism is a constant battle between the Buddha, you and me, and negative functions, the devilish influences that will try and knock us off the horse, that we have to go back to the Gohonzon on a daily basis to refresh that Buddha nature, that connection with the immortal, okay? That's why we must always have the spirit to speak out against evil and wrongdoing. So Daisaku Ikeda is saying, We must have the spirit to speak out against evil and wrongdoing, even if we see it occurring in our own organization. He's not qualifying the Soka Gakkai as being exempt from any of this. In fact, he's saying, watch out. This is what could happen after I'm gone. Make sure it doesn't. All of you be of the same mind as Nichiren, be of the same mind as me. That's exactly what he's saying. Only by denouncing great evil can we achieve great good. It is by virtue of defending the law that I've received this diamond-like body that cannot be destroyed. Okay? That's the only way it happens. Those who keep up this struggle, those who keep up this struggle keep up this struggle. That means it's an ongoing pain in the ass process of vigilance and effort on our part. Those who keep up this struggle for truth and justice in spite of obstacles and difficulties are certain to attain Buddhahood in the end. Because that's how you behave when you're a Buddha. I am convinced that I've shown and outlined the unchanging pattern of persecution in this letter to help his followers discern the essence of evil, with the aim of building a force of awakened individuals committed to courageously battling evil, which is what Daisaku Ikeda is trying to do right now with this lecture, with the aim of building a force of awakened individuals committed to courageously battling evil. That's what he just said in the previous paragraph. Kosen Rufu advances with each person. Kosen Rufu advances when each person is empowered with wisdom and leads a winning life. That's what he's trying to provide you with this lecture. The lay nun of Kubo, to whom Nichiren addressed this letter, had lost her husband and remained steadfast in her faith during the fierce attacks of the Atsuhara persecution. Seeing this, the Daishonin exclaimed, "Your ever-strengthening faith is admirable indeed." Our women's division members, which are the only reason we've hung this long, our women's division members today are striving with just the same spirit. They brilliantly demonstrate with invincible faith and ever-strengthening resolve. Boy, you girls must be badasses, huh? Wow. They brilliantly demonstrate with invincible spirit and ever-strengthening resolve that the lives of those who dedicate themselves to the mystic law are never unhappy, and that anyone can become happy through practicing Nichiren Buddhism. Always advancing, that is the spirit of Nichiren Buddhism. Kosen Rufu is a long journey, continuing into the eternal future. The key to victory is the spirit of unceasing effort. Last bit here on page 12, middle of the middle second column. Creating value as long as we live. I would therefore now like to call on all of you. So he's talking to you guys now. I'm not. I would therefore like now to call on all of you to continue making courageous strides forward. Many leaders and thinkers around the globe with whom I have met devoted their lives to the pursuit of human dignity and world peace. Such dedicated champions of humanity include co-founder of the Club of Rome, Aurelio Pesci, American civil rights activist Rosa Parks, chemist and double Nobel laureate Linus Pauling, physicist and Pugwash Conference co-founder Joseph Rotblat, Czech President Václav Havel, I might be mispronouncing some of these, champion of Indian independence B.N. Pandey, and Brazilian Academy of Letters President Otresgicilo de Athede. I also met with former South African President and great human rights champion Nelson M. Mandela at the Seikyo Shimbun building in Tokyo in 1990, the year after his release from 27 years or 10,000 days in prison. The memory of that occasion is still fresh, and I held a dialogue with Adolfo Perez Esquivel, the Nobel laureate and Argentine human rights activist who fought courageously against oppression. He said, value creation, represented by the Japanese word soka, is what motivates out of faith and commitment to life the struggle for dignity, for the values that make us human, and for the society that we want to build. Our daily SGI activities form part of a great movement to awaken and enlighten people around the world, a movement that has drawn the attention and admiration of many eminent international figures such as those I have mentioned. Kosen Rufu is an endless struggle against the devilish nature of life that tramples on human dignity and seeks to exploit human beings as a means to an end. Nichiren Daishonin solemnly states, strengthen your faith day by day and month by month. Should you slacken in your resolve even a bit, devils will take advantage. Blazing a path toward our goals, let's exert ourselves in advance from today and on to tomorrow. Day after day, let's rise up with energy and fresh momentum. Let's joyfully begin our hope-filled descent of a new summit of ever-growing movement of worldwide Kosen Rufu. The end of that, we'll go on to the second Gosho, the 8 winds. Next time we read, which will be, we're going to take a 2-week break. Thank you.
Thank you.